Very, very nice open up. Welcome, people. If it's Tuesday night, it's got to be 6 o'clock, and it's time for All Things Brunswick. We have a great show planned for you tonight, but we have a great show every time we come, and we're glad you visit and listen to us. I'm Bill Moore.
Mary Stillwell. And we want to welcome Bill back.
Dan's mic is not on, which
Bill,
means he stays out of trouble.
You turned my mic off deliberately, didn't you? Look at the smile on his face. Those of you watching online can see, yep, this was a sabotage move.
I would never do that to you.
No, that's...
If you're drowning, who's the first one there with an anchor?
You.
But we're so happy to have you here, Bill, because we know you're not feeling good.
I'm just... which is usually a little bit better than this, but not much. I've had some surgery, but everything will be good in another week. So just hang on there. Meanwhile, we got a good show to do. Yes. Mary's arranged to have a great person to come on and talk to you about some things. So, Mary, why don't you do some?
Yes.
Or her, excuse me.
Okay. This evening, we have Julie Flood, who is running for Court of Appeals in the state of North Carolina. And I don't want to spoil her thunder. I'd rather she tell you about herself. Oh, great. So, Julie, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Oh, great. Welcome. Welcome to All Things Brunswick. Please tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Okay, sure. Thank you so much for having me this evening. My name is Julie Flood, and I'm running for a seat on the Court of Appeals. I'm running for seat 8, which is going to be a vacant seat. And to the Court of Appeals, I would bring a wealth of experience because I currently work for the Court of Appeals as an attorney. And prior to that, I've worked for 8 other judges at the Court of Appeals. And what I have done in that role is I've been researching and drafting judicial opinions for the judges. And so I have very direct experience in the Court of Appeals doing exactly the work of what I would do as a judge. In addition to that, in my background, I have extensive business experience and business law experience, as well as teaching experience at multiple law schools. So that's just a little bit of an overview summary, and maybe we can get into a little bit of that further if there's something more you'd like to know.
Great. So, Julie, tell me, are you a North Carolina native?
I am not a North Carolina native. However, both of my parents were from North Carolina. My father grew up in western North Carolina in the mountains in the Waynesville, Hendersonville area. My mother grew up in eastern North Carolina in Richlands. And as far back as we can trace both of their families, it was North Carolina as far back as we can go. So they lived out of North Carolina while I was growing up. But I have about 21 first cousins all around the state and lots of aunts and uncles. And so I got back here as quickly as I could, and it's certainly home by heart for me, even though I did not actually grow up in North Carolina.
Absolutely. Dan, did you have...
So, Julie, one of the questions that I like to ask anyone who comes on that's running for something is, tell us more about the position. What does a judge on the Court of Appeals do?
Yeah, that's such a great question. So Court of Appeals judges sit in panels of 3 to hear cases. And by hearing cases, sometimes that means there will be attorneys arguing the case in person. And other times it means reviewing cases just on the written word. We call it reviewing the cases on briefs. And the judges sit in panels of 3, and they hear approximately 12 cases every 2 weeks, or they make decisions on about 12 cases every 2 weeks. And when making those decisions, it's based on a written record. So at the court, we are not hearing new facts. We don't have exhibits and documents like we might think of that people might see on television as to what goes on within a trial court. Instead, at the Court of Appeals, we are what's considered an error-correcting court. And so whatever has gone up at the trial level, the party that, the losing party, if you will, might say, I want to have this reviewed because I think something has gone wrong, has been decided incorrectly. And so they will appeal to the Court of Appeals. For most cases, it is an appeal of right, meaning they get to have one more bite at the apple. They get to have, so long as certain rules are followed and certain procedural things happen correctly, they will get to have that case heard at the Court of Appeals. In addition to regular cases, and by regular cases, I mean we hear things from trial court, business court, family court, all different types of cases, criminal and civil, business cases, real estate cases. And in addition to hearing those types of cases, there are sometimes some mediations that the judges will do, optional mediations that the judges will handle. So that's a little bit of a different function that the judges also get to take part in somewhat sometimes. But overall, in a given year, the Court of Appeals hears about 1,100 to 1,200 cases. And I think what's really important for listeners to know is that only about 15% of those cases go on to the Supreme Court. So about 85% of our law in North Carolina, of our appellate law, the appealed cases, get decided by the Court of Appeals.
Wow, that is so
I
interesting.
never knew that you had to hear 12 cases every couple of weeks. That's a lot.
Yeah,
I think.
absolutely.
Yes, and
That's
each
2 6-packs.
judge has.
She didn't hear that. Say it again, Bill.
I said that's 2 6-packs. That's a lot of work.
That's a lot of work. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there. But yes, it's a lot of cases, and each judge will have a couple of attorneys working for them, and those attorneys, like what I do, we process all of that and do the research and then advise the judge on how the ruling should go, considerations of previous law, and advise the judge as to how to vote on that particular thing. So for 9 different judges or justices over my career, this is what I've been doing.
And how, just as a follow-up question to what it was asked earlier, how long does it take between hearing it and a decision actually coming out? Because I know, for example, at the Supreme Court level, they're hearing something at the national level December 7th about North Carolina. I mean, they don't expect a result till June.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and that the best answer to that is it depends. So some cases come before the court, and a brand new legal issue is being considered, something that maybe the law isn't clear, or somehow that factually based case presents extra challenges. And other times it's really a very straightforward answer and does not require a lot of maybe extra research, or I might say unique perspectives or unique research under our law. And so every case that comes before the court is unique. It will have its own set of facts and circumstances. And so our goal is, I would say that there's kind of an internal goal of trying to get things out within about a 90-day window. Now, when the cases deal with very difficult issues of, say, difficulties with that involve children in maybe difficult family situations, we shorten that goal. Those go even to a higher priority list, and we try for about a 30-day window. But sometimes, and hopefully it's not often, but sometimes things take much longer than the 90 days. It might be that one judge on the 3-judge panel is maybe struggling with his or her decision. They want to do a bit different research than maybe the primary drafter has done, or, there are just all sorts of different reasons. Sometimes there might be a pending case that we know is at the Supreme Court that we want to kind of give a little bit of time for that to resolve because it might affect what we're doing. So there are reasons that you will see all different time frames, but I think there's a really a good goal because, justice delayed is justice denied type of idea. We want to get cases out very promptly, but there's always that tension between wanting it to be absolutely accurate and correct and the best decision we can come to versus also wanting to have that decision as promptly as possible to benefit the parties.
So, Julie, in essence, there is no time frame. I mean, you are not made to do a case by a certain time.
There is not any type of a mandate that's a certain time
Okay.
for the general type of cases. And, just the other practical nature of it is that within our workflow, within Chambers, we know that, yes, we are working on these 12 cases, the set of 12 cases for these 2 weeks. And in the blink of an eye, we're going to have the new set of 12 cases. So there's just also a reality that you don't want things to build up and back up within those cases that we are that the attorneys are working on and that the judge is working on it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Let me just, and again, this is just a point of information for me. When a decision is made, does it make 3-0 or 2-1?
I'm